Welcome everyone to an episode of Black Women Telling Their Stories. Today I'm joined by Toni Barton, who is an art director and a production designer who has worked on shows such as Girls, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage. Thank you so much for giving me your time today, and I'm so excited to do this interview. For the first question, I was wondering, where in the world are you right now?
I'm in New York. I live in New York. I work outside a lot, but I'm here right now in New York.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Were you raised in New York?
No, I'm from Los Angeles originally.
Oh.
I grew up in suburbs right outside of Washington, D.C. And I went back to Los Angeles to go to school, studied architecture at University of Southern California. And then I moved here to go to grad school. I went to New York University to study set design and art direction, or design for stage and film. And I've basically lived here ever since.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. What do you do as an art director and a production designer?
Okay, so I don't work as an art director anymore. I worked as an art director until 2017. I taught at NYU for many, many years. And while I was teaching, I was an assistant art director initially, which is basically a set designer, a person that drafts the sets. So every single ground plan, every single detail, every elevation, in order for a set to be built, it has to be drafted. So that was my first job. In essence, I worked on many different films as an assistant art director. And then I worked as an art director, which is basically a manager. So the art director in an art department is the person that makes sure that the vision of the production designer is executed. So hires the crew, meaning the assistant art directors, graphic designers, manages the art department coordinator, who manages the budgets, creates the budgets, manages the production assistants, manages the construction crew that builds it, the scenics that paint it, and the set dressers that dress the set for the set decorator. So I had that position until 2017. And I was also teaching at NYU, which meant that I was required to be in New York. While I was working on Luke Cage, when we basically did Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and then Defenders. And I was the art director working under the production designer by the name of Lauren Weeks, who's a wonderful production designer. And we kept doing shows after shows after shows, and there were just no time in between. And so during that time, when we were getting ready to design Iron Fist, we had some very big sets. This was the first time we had in essence, a billionaire character, and had major offices and stuff to design. And so the designer wanted to go off and only work on that. And so he basically suggested that as the art director, since I knew Luke Cage and we had about 3 episodes or 2 episodes to finish, he was like, why don't you let Toni finish it? Which was awesome. So that was really my first opportunity. And then after that, I stopped teaching and I stopped art directing, and then I've been production designing ever since. And what was great about that was that my first job was in Atlanta. I was in Atlanta for about 10 months and working on Star season 2. I came back and I did Jessica Jones season 3, which was the last of the Marvel Netflix series. And then a year ago, I was in Pittsburgh doing Archive 81, which just came out earlier this year. So not teaching and not art directing allows me to travel more.
What inspired you to get into this field? And when you were a teenager, did you have any idea that you'd be doing this right now?
Absolutely not. I from probably 6 years old, I wanted to be an architect. That's all I wanted to do. And what's funny is that I am actually surrounded by a ton of architects. I studied architecture undergrad. When I went to grad school at NYU, in terms of the set designers that were admitted to the MFA program, there were 12 of us that came in as set design majors. 5 of us came in with architecture degrees, which told me that wasn't that unusual. And since I've been working, probably a third to a half the people that I've worked with have architecture degrees or architecture backgrounds. So not that uncommon. A lot of people I would say the majority of the people come from a theater background or in New York. It's a little different outside of New York, but in New York in particular, because we have Broadway stuff. So a lot of people come from a theater background. Some people come from architecture. I was fortunate to have both and grateful to have both.
Your experience going to NYU and USC like kind of shaped how you approach your work and like your career?
Well, it's an education, but what school, listen, you could go to many different schools and potentially get the same education. What part of your growth getting out of high school and going into college and developing the next career paths are not only what you'll learn here in terms of a book, it's also about connections. What your professors are doing. You know, are they working professors? Are they out in the industry, in that world? Are they creating you know, in architecture, are they creating buildings that are worth exploring or doing academic study that's worth exploring, if that makes sense, in that industry? You know, what was valuable to me at NYU was having professors that were, you know, doing Broadway or doing opera, and then also I had one that was doing film. And so having that experience, that, you know, my first job was a job that I got from a professor of mine, you know what I mean? A couple of years later, when I first got in the union, the first film that I ever worked on was one of my professor made the film. It was the production designer of the film, but the art director was one of my classmates, Frank White, who's, you know, amazing art director. But he was like, okay, you're in the union now, come work on a film. So what school not only gives you an education, but it also gets you connections, because a lot of times, like I was coming from architecture. I was coming from enjoying and loving architecture with no architects in my family, nobody at all in the film industry. And so without those connections, you kind of need that, you know, it's helpful to have that. And that's what school did for me, I should say.
Wondering, what do you love about designing, and what is something that you don't particularly enjoy about
it? What I love about designing is problem solving. So if you have these puzzle pieces, and I should say spatially problem solving, right? So if you have these puzzle pieces and you know, like you turn them this way and you turn them this way and no way is working, and then all of a sudden you turn them backwards and upside down, you're like, oh my God, it's those revelations of spatially solving ideas, and also coming in with the history of art and architecture and fashion and sociology and understanding that's, you know, that's really interesting. I remember when I was actually a junior senior in high school, I interned at an architecture firm, and one of the architects told me, you know, you could be an engineer and know a whole bunch about one idea, or you can become an architect and know very little or know a lot of little things about a whole bunch of different things. And if I translate that then into production design, I actually really love that, because every time I get a new script, it's like a new Bible. It's like a new sociology, or it's a new group of people to study and do maybe perhaps like an archaeological dig to then to create these worlds for the people or the environment, or you know, the aesthetics or whatever it is that surrounds these people, so that when you watch it, hopefully that you believe that it's real and that it's not scenery on a soundstage or made up or, you know, just painted yesterday. You hopefully believe that these people been there 30, 40, 100 years or however long it's supposed the story is trying to say.
Do you think because you're like a production designer, you look at film differently because of that?
I think, I mean, I will say this, yes, but hopefully not. Because, I mean, I should say this, if the story's really good, you know, I mean, there's many different things. Like you can go see a play or a film or a television show, and you could be like, it's really bad actor, or really bad direction, but really good actors, or that scenery is really bad, or that costume is really bad. But hopefully if it all comes together, you're not paying attention because it's done right. And that's awesome. I can also watch something and be like, oh my God, that set is really phenomenal, but this story is not really good or whatever. And that's okay. Like that's okay. Like I can definitely acknowledge things and take them for where they are or go, or, you know, like if I watch something, I have some really good friends. One really good friend is a DP and I'll say, look, this story's not that great, but the shots are really phenomenal. Just watch it for the cinematography or, you know, whatever. So, you know, it's appreciating in essence the art that's in front of you. But hopefully I don't know if I don't notice, that usually means that it's done, that the collaborators collaborated really well to me.
What do you think makes a good set in general?
Not noticing it.
Oh, okay.
I don't mean that. There's have you ever heard of the Broadway show Miss Saigon?
Yeah.
So when it first came to Broadway, at the very end, you know, it's the story of Vietnam, the last days, 1975, and the mixed children, the American Black white soldiers mixed with Vietnamese mothers and their children being left behind. And, you know, it's a beautiful story, a hard story, some really beautiful music. But all anybody remembers when they go see it is at the very end, the last helicopter lands. And it's a helicopter that lands and you hear the choppers going and people start clapping for the helicopter. And it's like, they're clapping for scenery as opposed to being in the moment. And I don't, you know, I like, you may want people to be like, oh my God, I like that, whatever, but I want to be in that moment of the piece and not come out of it, for me.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I actually like, I don't know, I never thought about it that way. That's really interesting. What is your favorite project you've worked on and why?
Well, I have many different, for many different reasons. I mean, I'll say I actually had the privilege and the honor to do a short last fall, that is at the Met right now, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And it was done with an artist, Black Nigerian, a British Nigerian artist, that filmmaker. And she made this film imagining Seneca Village, which was the area located in the 80s between 7th and 8th before there was Central Park. And it was free Black and, you know, some Germans, some different people, but it was 66% African American. And these people were homeowners and they were, you know, workers, and they you know, had a thriving village that was beautiful, that was then desecrated, stolen to make Central Park, lied about, whatever you want to say. It's all true. And so, you know, Hannah Beekler, the production designer, created this amazing exhibit that opened, or curated this amazing exhibit that studied an Afrofuturist world. She created an Afrofuturist period world that opened last fall at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And in it, there's this film that's in this 6-sided TV that she designed that imagines being outside. It's called Outside of Time. And it imagines, you know, if the village still existed, you know, or if it, you know, if there were people there now or different time periods. And it's not a linear piece. It's a very ethereal piece, an experimental film. And Jane Kuru is the director. And it just, that's nothing I normally do episodic or narrative. And I had never done anything that was experimental like that. So that was fun and interesting and amazing and collaborative and wonderful.
Do you think like you want to kind of explore that more in the future, like going down more of like a exploratory design?
Well, I don't, it's nice to come out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm interested in meeting new people always. You know, there's things that I do well and there's things that I like, and there's things that I definitely don't like. But that's okay. That, you know, I'm interested in meeting new people and making experiences, not so necessarily concerned about the genre or the type, but making experiences that are worth enjoying, doing, and seeing.
Can you name a time you faced difficulty like through your career?
Yeah, every day. Oh. I mean, yes. I mean, there's always times, you know, a budget that seems impossible, difficult people, you know, I mean, but these happen on every job, and they're, it's not, I think it's less about dwelling on that one aspect, but figuring out part of problem solving, part of my job is to not get stuck there.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Figure out how to get around, get over, deal with, pray over, you know what I mean? Whatever that situation is, so that you can complete what the task that's at hand.
Yeah. How do you want the world of set design to change for the future?
I would like it to I would like more people that look like me.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely changing. I mean, it's definitely changed. Just, and I look at the time from when I was in school to now. But yeah, more. Period. Just period. and also, part of that more is also not being, as an African American, not being limited. Like, I am interested in telling stories that I'm interested in telling, and obviously stories that I experience are of interest to me. But it doesn't mean that as a Black woman that I should be limited to Black stories. And if my white brother can do the Japanese story, why can't I? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's about not only opening up the doors for opportunities so that more people that look like me are there, but also that the stories, we're not limited to only stories that tell our stories.
Yeah. What is your greatest accomplishment so far?
Here's what's really funny. I would say actually teaching, although I don't do it anymore. There is nothing harder nor nothing more rewarding. When I can say I taught for 18 years, and I have seen a generation grow, and I have colleagues now that were my former students, and I love that. I love that. It's hard. I mean, I remember like my first 2 or 3 years just kind of crying and going, how do I prepare class? And, but to go in and hear them and hear wows and oohs, or for them to come up and tell me about something that they learned that I never knew about, that excitement is, I would say that's probably definitely by far my greatest achievement, teaching.
Do you think you ever want to go back to teaching?
Perhaps not right now. I did it for a long time, but not right now, but perhaps in the future. Yeah.
For the last question, kind of going back to something you said earlier, how you want the film industry and like people in set design to look more like people like us. I was wondering, do you have any advice for young Black girls who want to pursue a career in set design or production design?
Yes. I mean, I have plenty of advice. The common thing obviously is you have to get an education. You have to understand history, art, sociology, architecture. You have to know how to communicate design visually, meaning sketching or art or drafting or whatever that aspect is. But I will tell you the best advice that I can give. When I was art directing on Girls, it was season 2, and I think season 1 had just dropped, which I didn't work on. But I got a call on my cell phone at the time, which really threw me because I forgot that my cell phone was on my website, which is no longer because of this one incident. But this young man that was a senior at Hunter College here in the city, who was studying set design, said that he loved the show and he watched it and he looked it up and he found my number and he wanted to know if he could come and shadow me for the day and look at the sets. And I was shocked because I was like, how did he find me?
Yeah.
But then I was like, he just asked a simple question. And a lot of times I find women, young women, Black people, Black women, do not just simply ask. Now the answer may be no, or the answer may be no right now. But when he asked me, I was shocked. And then I actually said, yeah. And he came and he loved it and he was grateful. And I don't know whatever happened to him, but it was more of an education for me that sometimes we just need to ask
Yeah.
and not like be leery if the answer is no right now. No,
Mhm.
not right now.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
the answer may be no, not right now, but maybe you could speak with this other person, or no, not right now, I'm busy, but contact me 4 months from now when I'm finished with this film and a little less crazed. You know, it's having the stamina, having the knowledge, the understanding, and not being afraid of the ask, but also having the understanding and the knowledge to follow through.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that was my last question, but thank you so much for talking to me today. I learned so much about your career, and I also learned like so much about like set design in general. And just thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me your time today. So thank you.
Thank you, Kennedy. All the best to you.
Oh, thank you.